discriminant. Okay, it's different. So the discriminant comes from our quadratic formula. It comes from our quadratic formula. Hence why it says quadratic formula discriminant, right? Like, look, no way, Mr. Russell, it comes from that and it's in the name? Yeah, real talk. Okay, so the quadratic formula is, someone remind me, x equals, let me not bang because he just did it earlier.
Negative b, and then the square root, or plus or minus, the square root of.
I'm listening to everybody. Very good. Okay, x equals negative b plus or minus, Jacob, please forward. Notes out. Notes out. Notes out. Okay. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, how many answers have we been getting to this? 2, right? We got a plus and a minus, positive, negative, 2 answers. Okay? We're going to learn that sometimes that won't always happen. We're going to learn when that is. Okay? Because we talked about having double roots before, and we talked about how sometimes we'll have imaginary solutions, but we said we're going to learn more about that later. Okay? So the discriminant is just the square root of b squared minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. So is that part of the quadratic formula? Yeah, that was just the radical part, right? Kind of that top right part. That is what we call our discriminant. Now we always got a number for that. Like if we look up over here at the whiteboard, here our discriminant ends up being 1. So like it started out as all of this in the blue. Look over here where my hand's at. Okay, all this in the blue, and we ended up simplifying it down to 1. Okay. Think of this as well. Yeah, the discriminant is the most simplified version of the radicand. What's the radical? So here, what did the discriminant end up being in black? 225, okay? Now, in both these cases, was the discriminant positive, negative, or 0? Positive, okay? So when the discriminant is positive, like we've had, we will have 2 solutions, which is what we've been having, right? So we've always had that discriminant, that square root, being positive, and whenever that happens, we'll have 2 solutions. Okay. And here's an example of when this happens. So here we have our equation. We needed the quadratic formula. Okay, is it already in standard form? Yes. Nice. Okay. So what's our A? What's our B? What's our C? 1, 3. Very good. Okay. You guys remember before when you guys when we first learned to identify our A, B, and C? You guys it wasn't like super easy all the time. Like sometimes it kind of caught us up, tripped us up. But you guys now, boom, 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 you're there. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, wham, bam, can of ham. Okay, Steph Curry said that in an interview during the All-Star game because he's put up to it by Jimmy Fallon. Fun fact. Wham, bam, can of ham. Okay. X equals negative b, so negative of 3. We're going to solve this using quadratic formula. Plus or minus square root of b squared, so 3 squared, minus 4 times 1 times negative 18, all over 2 times 1. So we're just plugging this into our quadratic formula, right? Same thing so far. Nothing changing. Let's see what's right. What's supposed to get. Okay, nothing changed. Same thing like we did during our previous 2 problems. Okay. So shoot. Okay. What's negative 3? Just negative 3. Yeah. What's 3 squared? 9. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 18. Okay, what's negative 4 times 1? Negative 4. Okay, so we just really need negative 4 times negative 18. Okay? It would end up being, what kind of 72? Positive 72, okay? You don't know that? Okay, right off the side, no worries. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? Negative 3 plus or minus what do we get underneath the radical. E1. Now, okay, we call this our discriminant. So is our discriminant positive? So how many answers should we have? 2. This is at what point we know how many answers we should have. Okay? And that is a perfect square. Was that you, Blake?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. So -3 plus or minus 9 all over 2. Okay? And we can split the equation, right? Okay. What? I think it's awesome. X equals -3 plus 9 over 2. X equals -3 minus 9 over 2. What's -3 plus 9? Okay, positive 6. The other one, though, would end up being that. What's 6 over 2? Okay. And then Grace, you said -3 minus 9 is -12. Yeah. Divided by 2. Could we clean up this answer? Gotcha. How could we write this down? Perfect. Okay. If we wanted to be really, really fancy, we could do nothing. These greatest don't have to. Hard him on that door shut too. Jeepers creepers. Yeah. Look.
Wait, why do you say good luck?
I hope it goes well. Why?
Who doesn't say that?
Yeah, come on. See, thank you, man.
It's like common language.
Yeah, exactly, right? Hey, so was this any different than normal so far? No, okay, then we're done with that problem. So that's when the discriminant was positive, which is what we've had every single time. And it works out this way. Okay. Now let's look at a different scenario. Right below this. When the discriminant equals 0, we'll have one solution.
What?
What could have been a hint that it was going to be 1 in this blank? There's no S in solutions, though, right? It's not solutions, it's just solution. Okay, so we can use subject verb agreement to know that. Okay.
It's always gonna be a test question, and then you just make sure you knew the answer. Grammar was.
I just like
English with me.
I remember in common sense.
So-
we had a-
Before that, we had to move the thing over to make it equal 0 and a decimal. Like, we got too interested.
Yes. Okay, so it's not when the equation equals 0, it's the discriminant. So
Oh,
the discriminant is that square root of b squared minus 4ac. Good question. Okay, so it's whatever it's underneath that square root.
so we should look at that first.
Yeah, so we'll set up the problem and we'll look at it as we keep going. So it's just kind of a way we can say, let's look at what we should be getting. So here, is it already in standard form? Okay, so we identify A, B, and C. A is 1, B is, and C is. Awesome. Okay, so we set up our equation. X equals negative of 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4 all over 2 times 1. I know I kind of speed ran that one, didn't I?
You really did that.
I actually kept that one.
I used to
Oh,
X
great.
when you had
There
to
you go.
I
I'm
know,
kind of
same
proud of
here.
myself and this process game.
That was the first one.
Good morning.
It was, yeah.
I
Been a
always
while.
thought
Wow. We got 55 minutes. That was our first one.
Yeah.
Really?
Sad.
Good job, guys.
That's good learn. You gotta be on more alert.
Okay. Question on substituting any of that stuff into the formula. Negative of positive 4 is negative 4 plus or minus, okay, what's 4 squared? Negative 4 times 1. Negative 4, okay, negative 4 times 4. Oh, what do we notice might happen with the discriminant?
Oh, it's
You're
zero.
gonna
Oh,
cancel.
right.
What? It's gonna be 0? That's what we're talking about? Is it equaling 0? No way! Okay.
Wait,
Just rubbing his
That
pencil.
totally wasn't planned at all. Right?
That voice
Yeah.
crack though. That kind of had me triggered a little bit.
Okay, so what's 16 minus 16?
0.
0. So this tells us how many answers should we get? 1. Okay? Tells us we should get 1 answer. That'll be what we call a double root again. Okay? So we look through this. Negative 4. What is the square root of 0? 0. So do we have to write plus or minus 0? No, we don't even have to. Over 2. So what's negative 4 over 2? Negative 2. Double root.
Wow.
Well, and you can just
So what makes us have two answers is when we're able to add and subtract something. We've kind of talked about that plus or minus gives us the two answers. But when we can add and subtract literally nothing, because 0 is literally nothing, we end up just getting the one answer. It's double root.
Ew.
Yeah. Yes, but well, yes, but actually no. Yeah. Questions on this one? So did this change the way we solved it? Did it change the way we solved it? Not really. We still did all the same stuff, right? It went a little bit faster because we didn't have to split the equation or anything like that. Okay. So it went a little bit faster. It didn't really change the way we solved it at all. But it did impact how many answers we had. So would it be potentially good to be aware of, like, on a test, like that, like, oh, I got one answer. Oh, but it's okay. The discriminant was 0, so I should have only got one. Okay, that might be good to be aware of. Okay, let's go to the next option. Where we'll say,
twice, is it wrong or no?
no, you can put x equals 2 and x equals 2. When the discriminant is negative, so we talked about positive, 0, and now our last option is negative. It's going to be one of those three, right? Can a number ever be anything other than positive, negative, or 0? No, it's always going to be one of those. Okay. So when the discriminant is negative, we will have what we call imaginary solutions. Yeah, in math, there's all these imaginary numbers. Okay, well, actually, there's really one imaginary number.
What is it?
Square root of negative 1. So you can't take the square root of a negative number. When this happens, we'll write no real
Solution.
solutions. Or NRS, right? You know what is NRS? So you can put that in parentheses if you want. NRS.
We talked about NRS.
Yeah, we have. We talked about it a little bit. The idea of it. So this is one scenario when we'll have no real solution is when we have imaginary numbers. Okay, and we won't really go in depth on imaginary numbers in algebra 1. That's an algebra 2 concept. To go more in depth on. So when that time comes. Okay, so we have x squared plus 6x plus 13 equals 0. Okay, we're still going to solve this the same way. What do you think our discriminant is going to be this time? Negative, right? Okay, our first one is positive, second one is 0. This one's probably going to be negative. So, is this in standard form? Let's identify A, B, and C. A is 1, B is, and C is. You guys are awesome. Okay? So, x equals negative of 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 1 minus times 13. What was that? It is a song!
Why did you bring it up?
I wasn't here last time.
Oh,
Sing it.
Oh goodness.
Sing it.
Yeah, what?
Don't.
You have to. I don't know.
I feel like he's about to
Oh,
like.
what are you thinking? What did I do?
Recording.
No, I wasn't. So I'm really confused.
Oh, he's pretty got it.
He got it.
What the heck?
Look at this song.
See how it's like the top search?
Now it's fun.
Yeah, you
Oh
should
my
be.
god.
What would you have done?
I didn't know.
Use his head up.
Whoa, hey, guys, quiet down.
X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
that great?
I was no, not at all. We tried.
It's already stuck in my
I
head.
know we tried to warn you, but
I said it sounds like a song.
It does. Because it's a song. Okay.
well, I think it's kind of better with the harmony versus like the sarcastic.
Right.
Yeah, the harmony.
What are you saying?
No, it's kind of
Okay.
scary. It was scary.
Oh, negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 4 times negative 13 is negative 52. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay. Have we noticed anything that our discriminant might be?
Yeah, negative.
Might be negative, right? Because the negative number is bigger.
Do we have to like finish or can we just say NRS?
If you notice it here, you can say NRS. But if you don't notice it here, negative 6 plus or minus the square root of, what would this be? Negative 16.
Wait, so as soon as the inside's negative,
Can we take the square root of a negative number?
Why can't you do square root of negative?
Because they're imaginary. Because here's the thing, man. Okay? So we know that to get normal 16,
Okay, it's 4.
you can take 4 times 4, right? Or you can take negative 4 times negative 4.
Yeah.
But it has to be the same thing. Can you ever get two of the same exact number to get a negative number?
No.
Because if they're the same, they're either both positive or they're both negative. Well, if they're both positive, a positive times a positive will give you a positive, okay? A negative times a negative will always give you a positive. So it's not possible, you can't do it to get two of the same to get a negative. You can't. It's just not possible.
Is that supposed to be a negative?
Okay, then yes.
Okay.
And you just can't do that. So that's why. So if you get to the point where you can say, oh, okay, Mr. Hater on my voice, that's okay, I can't say. The square root of a negative number, we say, no real solution. So if you get to this point, we're done even earlier. Okay? Why it's really good to remember this. Okay? Questions?
So if you try to solve that, then it will work.
You just can't go further. Like, well, okay, algebra 2.
The math wrong.
You know how in math you always learn, like, oh, you can't do this, and
There's
you can.
progressions of it.
Yeah.
And then you learn you can't do this, you can't, like, you always
Yeah.
learn, like, oh,
Math
like,
makes
you can't take 3 minus 9, you can't do that, like, first grade. And then you learn, like, third grade, well, actually, you can, it's negative 6. Okay? You guys remember that? Like, that being a thing? Like, you
Yeah,
can't do
in
this.
every single subject.
It's like,
My whole
yeah,
life.
that happens in math, like, all the time. Okay, this is another time. We say you
And
can't
in
do
like
that.
science too.
Okay,
Oh,
here-
but then
Yes,
just
you
like
can.
next year you gotta be able to do
It's just the entire thing is
Wait,
it.
let me finish the thought. Okay, let me finish the thought, guys. Thank you. Okay. So it's true that it's no real solution because they are imaginary numbers. And so if something's imaginary, is it real? No. Okay. By definition, to be imaginary, it is not real. Or vice versa. If it's real, it's not imaginary. So it is true that there's no real solutions. In the math we know, we cannot progress this equation any further. In Algebra 2 math, not this class, Algebra 2, you can learn how to progress this further. But for now, it's sufficient or okay for us just to say, no real solution. Because we aren't going to go deeper into imaginary numbers than just the fact that they exist.
Why don't we do anything
They're too
Because
complicated
we're
for
going
math.
into other math right now, and it's easier to learn after you learn other math.
Our frontal lobe is not developed yet. Said by Miss Jobman.
We are.
Our frontal lobe
So
is
we-
We are.
mine.
By 21.
Yeah, Kale's is
Alright,
0.
so we have. Hey.
Can you catch the wall? Will you catch this wall?
Okay.
Okay, ready? Catch the wall.
Oh.
That's tasteful.
I had to get it, okay. I had to track it down. Got caught lost in light, okay. Hey, so we have how many examples here?
That's me in softball.
Okay, how many options did we have for a discriminant? 3. Is it? What do we think we might have here? Probably one of each, right? Would that be a pretty good assessment?
Oh, really?
A pretty good guess, right? No, really? You know, it's like the owl meme from like way back when, like when memes first became a thing. Oh, really? Okay. So, first one. How would we start solving this?
I'm not that OG.
Those were, I forgot what kind of memes.
I'm not
Add
that
4x squared. So 4x squared minus 12x plus 9 equals 0. Okay, now what do we do?
Make your quadratic equation.
We have to identify
A, B, and C, I guess, but I mean, still.
what's A,
Four.
4.
what's B,
Negative 12.
what's C,
9.
9. Okay, now we plug it into our quadratic formula.
X equals
Okay,
negative.
I want you guys to try plugging
Oh, wow.
the formula.
Oh, that requires.
I know.
That requires me thinking
Hey,
I
you guys
am
know
going
what
to opt
it is
out
now?
of that.
You guys need a song to help you remember?
No.
No.
That video
No.
freaks me
No.
out.
No.
Why is like,
Yes, dude. You guys know what
Can you
word
play
it
that
is?
through the entire test?
No, shut
Word
up.
in science.
No.
Wow.
water is wet.
We should
You
do
know,
like the
and
heavy
we actually
metal.
found out the water is wet. We've
No,
done it.
water.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Because the
Okay.
water in water,
Hey, no.
there's water, and then in the water molecules, there's different molecules of water that make up water. So water is technically.
No, no,
I
no.
like the video.
Hey,
It's connected to
That's
water.
not quite how it works. But
Hey,
It
Mr.
is.
Kossel, let's go to Mr. Howard. We asked Mr. Howard this question.
Okay, so one molecule of water would not be wet, but a collection of water molecules would be wet because each molecule inside of that would be touched by other water, thus being wet.
Boom.
But the individual one water molecule of H2O would not be wet. The collection of H2O would be wet.
But water is a collection of H2O, which means water is wet. Like a
Technically,
cup.
but it doesn't have to be. That'd be a body of water.
Oh my goodness.
So one water molecule is still water, and that would not be wet. It's just one water.
So like one drop of water is not wet.
A drop. Well, one molecule of water is not wet. A drop of water would probably be more than a molecule, so it'd probably be wet.
Water is
Why,
wet.
why do people care about this question?
I don't know. Hey, but
That's like
let's
a
work.
word.
Hey, what are we supposed to be doing now?
Math.
Mr. Kossel, I have another question.
Let's finish off number one. We'll hold all things to later.
Okay.
Let's finish off number one.
There's 12 fish, 6 of them drowned. How many are left?
There's still 12. There's 6 are dead, and you can't drown fish.
There you go, there you go.
So anyway, let's finish up number one. Okay. Yes, Peyton. Oh, no, you are right. Good work. Okay. Hey, when you're done, when you're done, please raise your hand, or if you have questions, please raise your hand. Peyton. Okay.
I'm the best.
No.
Right.
No, I was not to say something.
Remember, when you're done or have questions, please raise your hand. I believe it's right. How it's squared. Well, we can still put the sum.
Wait, Mr. Crossley, you wanna us to like solve it all these?
Yeah, I would love for you guys to solve this.
Okay, I was.
Took me a minute.
Hey, so Jacob, remember I asked you something?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you gonna do?
I don't know.
No. What are you gonna do?
2 times 8
You're so full of it.
Cal, turn around, boy.
Mr. Crossley,
Put your paper, God.
when you were in school, did you do like the 9 thing, like the 9?
I didn't learn that way. I didn't talk to you. I know what you're talking about.
Nobody here knows it.
I
know. Chris, I know it. Well, I went to Wigan Water and then water there. And then when I came over here, nobody knew about it. They got like
Other than a first year.
no, not that thing. Like 9 times 6.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did.
5, 6, 54.
Yeah, I
moving through
have
all
to.
the windows.
I just always memorize it.
Same with cursive, like nobody learns cursive.
I don't
every
even
single
know
letter
how
of
to
cursive.
cursive.
But
I've
we
been
had
writing
it
for 9 years.
The
From
school in
third-
Pittsburgh taught it in elementary
from
school.
third
So stupid.
to like
No,
ninth
we
grade,
were
we
taught
had
it
to
when
write
we had like
everything in
2
cursive.
classes over cursive. And we were like,
I was just taught how to.
Okay, we're taking our attention back in. Bringing our attention back in. Let's move back to our seats. Let's progress. Okay, let's have our voices off, please and thank you. Voices off. We're topping side conversations. We're talking only about math. Thank you. Okay, I do not want to hear anyone else's voice right now. Thank you. So x will equal negative of negative 12 plus or minus the square root of negative 12 squared minus 4 times 4 times 9. 9. Okay, all over 2 times 4. Okay, that's how we plug it in. Negative 12 is positive 12 plus or minus the square root of what's 12 squared? What did this end up being? Negative 4 times 4 times negative 9. Did we see that earlier? And that ended up being 144. All over 2 times 4 is 8. Hey, what do we notice is going to happen with our discriminant? It's going to be 0. It's kind of handy, okay? So x equals 12 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 8. So how many answers should we get? Just one. Whenever the discriminant is 0, it's underneath the radical. The radicand is 0. We should just get 1. Because x is equal to, well, do you really have to do the plus or minus square root of 0? No, so what's the square root of 0? 0, so you don't need to write that. So it's just 12 over 8, and what is 12 over 8? No, what is 12 over 8? I heard 3 over 2. Okay, we can reduce them both by 4. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Okay. Questions on that one? Okay. Nope. Okay, on 2. On 2 is just in standard form yet?
No.
No, we can get it there. How do we get it there? Add 2x squared to both sides, okay? So what's 3x squared, excuse me, what's 3x squared plus 2x squared? 5x squared plus 8x plus 5 equals 0, okay? So, what is our A, B, and C? Okay. I want you guys to finish this one up. And when you're done, or have questions, raise your hand, okay? Yes, hold up. Yep. Does everyone check that? I appreciate it, buddy. Good luck to JV track today, Blake. Where are you competing at? Louisville. Okay. And good luck to girls soccer today. Where is district being held at? Ralston at Mercy. You have baseball today? I don't think so.
Sophomore yesterday.
It's true. Southwick. Yeah, how'd that go? Yeah.
In Beatrice. Oh
Men's level?
Yeah. Pretty crazy to say.
Yeah, we're at.
We do.
You can play on the correct game or something. Perfect square, yes. Why is it ended? It's not so good. Or what was the times two?
Dude, I did so many times.
It was getting in the way of volleyball. That's how I got in six.
Dude, I have some nasty servers.
That's not square.
My spikes are
Times two is four. Five times five is 25. Five times four is 16. So 50 is hard. That's 6 times 6. Okay, let's talk about this one a little bit more. X equals negative of what number? What's our B? 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 5 times 5 all over 2 times 5. Questions on that substitution, the original plugging it in. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 5 is, or 5 times 20, excuse me, is 100. What might we notice about our discriminant? It's going to be negative. Let's just verify. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 36 over 10. Now 36 is the perfect square, but what do we know about negative 36? Okay, so what do we write? So if you just write this and circle this, is that correct?
No.
What do we have to write? NRS. So yeah, what do we think our next one's probably going to be? Probably our one where we have 2 real solutions. Okay. So let's go through that. We'll go through that together. Is this in standard form? No. Subtract 8x. 2x squared minus 8x minus 24 is equal to 0. Okay. Grace, what's A, B, and C?
2, negative 8, and 25.
Very good. Oops.
Negative 24.
Yep. Okay. Josh, you're gonna have to help me set this one up. X equals
Negative 8 in parentheses plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 in parentheses 2 and then in parentheses negative 24 over 2 over 4.
very good. Exactly right. Okay, so we'll go through and solve this. Negative 8 is what? 8. Negative 8 times negative 8 is what, Blake? 64. Okay. Negative 4 times 2 is what, William? Negative 4 times 2 is? Negative 8. Okay, we might not know what negative 8 times negative 24 is top of our head, so I'm just kind of separating that out. But we do know what's funnier than negative 24. 25. Okay. 8 plus or minus the square root of 64. Now we can do 8 times negative 24. We don't know what that is. I'll write it off here to the side. Negative 24 times negative 8. Okay. So 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 2 is plus 3. 19. Plus 192 because a negative times a negative is a positive. 64 plus 192 is 256. What times what is 256, Braden?
16.
Yeah. Doing some fooling around earlier, found it. Okay. So yes, we do have 2 solutions to this one, right? Now just because we have a positive number, does that mean we're going to have a perfect square every time? No, it happened to be this way. Kind of convenient. Okay. Let's see what's rains out after. Let's forget. Split our equation into x equals 8 plus 16 over 4 and x equals 8 minus 16 over 4. What's 8 plus 16? Yeah, what's better than 24? 25. What's 24 divided by 4? 6. Okay, other one, 8 minus 16. Yep. Negative 8 over 4. Negative 2, clean up our answer. X equals negative 2, comma 6. Questions on that last one? Kind of speed ran it a little bit, but I think we're getting a little more familiar with that.
Okay. Hey, so there's 8 problems. You guys want to do all of them? Oh, okay. You convinced me. Is 1 enough to not do?
2,
Okay, I'll give you 2.
4.
No.
8.
I'll give you 2.
Two's good, that's fair. That's more than I expected. Wait, so which two are we not doing?
I'll tell you. You have to guess.
Oh, yeah, he got this like,
7 and 8.
You guys just have to guess. If you get it wrong, well,
I
I
didn't
think.
feel it.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Or you can just be like, the two that aren't NRS aren't.
Psych. Okay. Hey, don't do. Hannah nailed it. Hannah, what'd you say?
7.
7 and 8.
The last two, wow.
Don't do 7 and 8.
Oh yeah, I did not know.
Hey, so if this isn't enough room for you to work, what can you do? What are some options? Do some scratch paper, okay? But if you have scratch paper, do I want you to throw it away?
No.
Staple it to it. So that way I
Yeah.
see your scratch paper, your work, okay? Hey, so I want you guys to use your remaining time here to work on this worksheet, okay? So let's get a head start on this. Please and thank you. You guys nailed some music, but I would set it up very, very quickly. It would take more than a minute doing that.
I
I already did. Sorry, I got something on my advisory at my house.
What day?
It is the 29th all day long. Yes,
29th of April.
All day long. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck to you too. Just sit here
Thanks.
all that without the fun one.